People who take massive war crime level dumps in public bathrooms but don't flush. Why? I did this once because I had no choice. I had to be somewhere early for work that was 1.5 hours away. So I'm driving this whole time, before sunrise, drinking coffee, a little nervous for this work thing, and now I have to shit bad. I find a random Denny's and run straight to the bathroom. There's only one stall. I lock the door and turn to find someone clogged the entire bowl with paper and ass gaskets. I proceed to push out this ridiculous soft serve mountain on top of the soggy paper platform. Like a McDonald's ice cream cone, but shit. The entire pile is above water. I had to hover and wipe just to avoid touching it. I had no choice but to top it off with a blanket of shitty paper. By the time I'm done, the summit is a good 3 inches above sea level. I could push that flusher 100 times and the whole structure wouldn't budge. Absolutely shameful. If anyone here is a Denny's employee in Northridge, CA that had to deal with this, I'm sorry. OMG, my office at my old work was directly across from the toilet. There were 6 of us in that building and it didn't take long to figure out who our terrorist shitter was because she came in at 8 and was in the bathroom by 830 without fail. At about 840 rolling stink clouds would permeate the complex, my office being hit the worst, but honestly it smelled so bad everyone was near to being poisoned on a daily basis. Paint peeled. Plants withered and died in the wake of the gas cloud. She ate a great deal of fried food and drank nothing but coffee and soda, at least while at work. I took to closing my office door at about 820 and took to rolling up a blanket to block the space between the bottom of the door, and it seemed to help at least keep the air breathable without the aid of gas masks. Other tricks we tried were putting a box of matches in each of the offices so we could strike them to cover up the stench, but those got taken away by management. I suppose they feared we'd burn the place down after being blinded by the stench, and dabbing Vicks under our noses. It was truly the worst shits I'd ever smelled, and I don't know why she couldn't retrain her bowels to erupt earlier before she left for work. Her husband probably threatened her with divorce if she didn't find someplace else to poop. As someone who used to use heroin, I can tell you, my friend, this is true. You don't go for sometimes weeks, if you're using hard. So when it comes, in a public bathroom cause you're homeless, it's dangerous. It's rock hard, and 2x 3x wider than your asshole. You scream and cry, feel violated. Eventually you have start breaking it apart with your fingers, just to get it started. Then grab onto the handicap rail and scream and push while this literal rock log, with the exact impression of your intestines, cause it's been in there so long, rips out of you. The end of it is covered in blood. You wipe a little blood off, look down in horror at the toilet. You try to flush, it doesn't even move, nor break apart. Sometimes you try and break it up, not leave it for someone. Sometimes you even remove it and throw it away. But sometimes, you're just too horrified, sick, and weak to do anything about it. And you know, someone will always remember it. The last time I posted this I got multiple golds on another account. It gets sad, but it's funny as fuck. And it took place 6 years ago this week. It's long, but please read. There is some setup. Just read it. This is the last time I made my dad laugh. Literally. This story. He was scheduled for some tests at the hospital, and so I went to be there to see what the results were. It was an angiogram, so kind of a big deal. I woke up late and in a rush, I grabbed clothes out of the dryer. However, we had washed a down comforter and it broke apart and feathers were everywhere. Stopped by McDonald's and grabbed 2 Egg McMuffins, ate them on the way. Got to the hospital and immediately had to shit. Bad. Like, having to do the walk. And, something was seriously wrong with my underwear too. I had not been to this hospital before, and when I finally found the bathroom it was out of service. But a nurse directed me to another. It was a single, handicapped-capable bathroom. I ran in there, nearly didn't get my pants down fast enough, and when I did, feathers flew everywhere from my clothes. From the comforter that broke. Clumps and clumps of feathers. And then the explosion of liquefied egg muffins came. Saying it was bad is an understatement. Wiped and stood up to survey the damage. I was not prepared for the sight. There was shit and feathers fucking everywhere. It looked like someone shit out a goddamn chicken. It was a sight to behold, and I thought, what would I think if I came across this? I would wonder about what the fuck happened forever, and so I decided that someone else should have that honor. To come upon something that looked like an emu shit golem being born. And with that, I left it. About 6 months ago I came across one of these that will haunt me for the rest of my days. I mean, I've seen nasty shit covered bathrooms before, we all have. Some of us, I am forced to acknowledge, have covered bathrooms in shit themselves, may they burn forever in hell. This wasn't that. Everything was in the bowl, but I can't really say where it belonged, because this did not belong in any human plumbing. I've seen sewer mains that could not have transported this deuce. It was massive. We're talking the goat.cx guy must have stopped here massive. It was fully as large around as my calf, and I am not a small guy. I stopped, horrified, then lifted my arm before me, palm up, and looked at my forearm before looking back into the bowl. Again, it is not a small forearm, but it looked like a small forearm that day. If that turd had been inside me, I would not have been able to walk. Had it wanted out of me, I'd have had to dull the poop knife enough that it could be applied internally. It led from just below the rim of the long bowled, king-size toilet right down to the drain, which it did not enter even a little, because it would not fit. I can still see it in my mind's eye, and I wish I could not. It looked like something you might pick up while camping to throw on the fire bed, fully expecting to have coals remaining in the morning. I slammed the door of the stall and backed away, and then, I am embarrassed to admit, I stepped forward again and reopened the door, not believing it would still be there, because I must have imagined it. I didn't imagine it. When we were in Greece, I took a massive shit at a restaurant in the middle of nowhere. There was a sign when I walked in that appeared to show a person wipe their ass and then put it in the garbage. I thought nothing of it until the bowl wouldn't flush and realized the sign was literally telling me to wipe my ass and put the paper in the garbage. Anyway, the bus beeped its horn twice and I knew if I wasn't on that bus they were leaving me. So there I am staring at this massive turd and a pile of shitty paper not flushing. So I said fuck it, I live thousands of miles away from here and need to get on that bus. So I basically sprinted from the restroom and paraphrasingly yelled, "Sorry, I took a shit and didn't throw my TP away, I'm American," and they just nodded and said safe travels, like Americans showing up and taking massive shits to just up and leave was normal. It was in that moment I truly understood where the USA stood in the world. Crazy times. Once, when I was around 10, I pooped in a public bathroom. To preface, this was a busy area at Disney World where you had to wait to use the bathroom due to how many people there were. This day I laid a log so large that I knew deep down it was meant to stay where it laid. Fate had a different plan though, and I found out that I'm not a fan of automatic toilets that day, and my 10-year-old self kept moving in front and out of the way of the sensor to flush. The toilet flushed each time, the war crime level dump didn't budge, until finally the toilet paper blocked the hole. While the back was turned, because I was a dumb kid who wasn't paying attention, I ended up having the toilet start overflowing and just barely saved my pants from the ungodly nasty shit water pouring out. The other people in the closest stalls were not so lucky. I like to think that they didn't get nasty shit water all over their pants, but this isn't a fairy tale. I was so embarrassed I had trouble ever flushing in public after that. When my daughter was about 5 years old, she struggled a bit with constipation. It happens a lot when kids start school because they have to change their bathroom schedule to conform to their school schedule. Also, most kids will do everything they can to avoid pooping away from home. Anyway, our pediatrician recommended giving her several small doses of Miralax during a long weekend when she had a Monday off from school. Not enough to cause an explosive blowout, just enough to really get the poop moving. After 3 days of Miralax doses, she said she had to poop. She situated herself on the toilet with a book to read. About 10 minutes later she called for me and said she needed help. I thought she needed help wiping, so of course I went in. She didn't need help wiping yet. She wasn't done pooping yet. Not even close. She was sitting on the little garbage can. Still pooping. Of course I asked her why she was pooping in the garbage can. She said because there's no more room in the toilet. I looked and sure enough, there was a pile of poop almost as wide as the toilet bowl and almost as high as the toilet seat. And the trash can was almost full too. It looked like giant servings of soft-serve chocolate ice cream. Fortunately, after a few more minutes she was finally empty. I ended up using one of their plastic sandbox shovels to transfer some poop from the toilet to a plastic bag so I could flush the remaining poop. I then squeezed the poop from the bag into the toilet and flushed. Then I shoveled out the trash can and flushed that poop. I put the shovel and trash can in a garbage bag and put them in the big trash can. I had had my fill of poop by then. Not my shit, but a shit I bore witness to. Let's set the stage. Several years ago, suburban Del Taco, on a busy Sunday, my stoner friends and I decide to get some delicious cheap tacos and hit up that salsa bar. We all eat our fill, and head back to the car. My friend Kevin, a lifelong vegetarian, and no war crime shitter, says, "Hey, I'll be right back, I gotta take a shit." So we wait. And we wait. 15 minutes go by, he's not answering texts, so I start to get out of the car to go see if he's okay. Just as I got out, I see him running away from the front door with the biggest grin on his face, being yelled at by 2 kids. He explained his prolonged absence. When he went to the bathroom, he noticed a couple kids, 12 to 13, sitting at a table right next to the bathroom hallway, giving him the old hairy eyeball. Thinking nothing of it, he goes into one of the stalls, starts to depant and sit, but then stops mid-squat because something catches his eye. Hot sauce packets. Tucked ever so carefully under the toilet seat, poised to explode on whatever unlucky soul sat next. He lifted the seat and took out the packs, then proceeded to unload a Moab into this Del Taco toilet, would have made Saddam blush. He finished up, and made his way to the drink station to get a refill before leaving, in which time the 2 kids bolted in the bathroom to see the aftermath of their carnage and reset their trap. What greeted those boys was another brand of carnage altogether. Yo dude, that's the nastiest shit I've ever seen. That's fucked, you're a sicko. Their cries only made him laugh harder. He got to the car and we made a beeline out of there. Meanwhile he's telling us the story, the driver has to pull over because we're all laughing so hard. Then he pulls out his phone to show us the picture he took. You know those alleged pictures of the Loch Ness Monster? It was sort of like that, parts of it so large, it was breaching the surface of the bowl water. Big around as a baby's arm, with distinct layers from several meals. Truly a work of art, a regular shitcasso. We had a guy we called Lester the Nester at work. Story time. So, I work at a large campus with dozens of buildings. Due to the nature of my work, the group I work with uses a lot of physical space relative to the number of people working in the building. As you can imagine, with such a low worker density, pretty much everyone in our building knows each other. Moreover, the ass-to-toilet ratio is primo, I mean there are probably more toilets in our building than people that regularly are in the building. The bathrooms were always clean. If you're poop shy you could always find a bathroom without feet under the stall. You could say that our building was the best kept pooping secret on campus. That is, until it wasn't. One day I took stroll into the handicrapper to unload my morning constitutional. As you're anticipating, I happened upon an absolutely battle scene, much to my dismay. Toilet paper everywhere. Like, an entire roll laid upon the seat alone, with scraps of toilet paper scattered about, some dangling off the handrail, balls of toilet paper on the floor. This person put a ton of effort into turning the first-class stall into their poop paradise. No amount of cheek sweat was penetrating the toilet paper ass gasket that this perpetrator deposited. But, to make matters worse, the motherfucker left the most heinous diarrhea splattered everywhere. I don't even understand how they did it. The water was black. Poop up the sides of the bowl. Some splattered along the rim. It was truly impressive. I can only imagine he decided to leave it so we could all appreciate his handiwork. What baffled me is that for all of the toilet paper he used, there wasn't any in the bowl from him wiping. We had a guy we called Lester the Nester at work. I was working at a Panera Bread a few years ago. This 16-year-old kid, first day in the job, comes up to me close to closing with this look of concern on his face. Like he has just witnessed eternity and his mind was trying its damned best not to split from the strain of comprehension. He ushered me to the women's restroom and bade me look to the stall. Now I wish I was exaggerating the size of this thing. Thicker than a Coke can, might have been twice as so, longer than a Subway footlong was one, single unbroken, horrific log so fucking big it was sticking out of the toilet like some curious horror wanting to stare at you over the lip of the bowl. I told the kid to not let any other customers in, went and got my assistant. I was a shift at the time, and between the two of us, wearing these long yellow hazmat looking gloves with food prep gloves underneath for extra measure, hoist this whale of a turd into a trash bag, double, triple, quadruple bag this thing, hence how I know it was definitely bigger. Couldn't close your hand around this thing and goddamn was it dense. And haul ass to the dumpster with it. Naturally the gloves went with it. They were technically for dishwashing, but I didn't trust any amount of sanitizing to make those things dish-worthy again. We swore to never speak of it again, and I spent the rest of the night in silent horror wondering if whoever had spawned that unholy thing was okay, because how in God's name anyone could pass that from their rectum and still be in any condition called living is beyond me. Honestly, one of the most embarrassing and upsetting things in my life, hence the throwaway. I was going in for an abdominal scan, and the way it's done in my South Asian country is that you don't eat or drink anything for 8 hours, take an initial scan, then chug 1.2 liters of water within an hour and get another jug of water inserted into your bum with a tube. I didn't ask questions. This is apparently to make sure everything shows up well. Anyway, I did the scan, which was terrible. The dye insertion was the worst pain I had felt, and was overall feeling not great. I was hungry. It was 8 p.m. so I was tired and my arm had to be held up not to bleed over the ground because they had just taken out the 4 vein. We were on our way home and my dad dropped us off at the nearby McDonald's while we waited for an Uber, and I was starving so I started to eat some fries. Commence weird rumbles in my stomach, and feeling the immense need to fart, but I knew this wasn't going to go well. Skedaddle up to the bathroom and there's 2 cubicles, one is shut so I go in the other and let loose. Oh my god, I didn't expect the mess that came out of me, and the water inserted in meant that it literally exploded everywhere, the seat, the top and even the floor. I'm nearly in tears at this point because I'm so tired and hungry and in pain, so I look for toilet paper and it's not there. Now panicking, I turn to flush it and go in the next cubicle and get some TP, but the flush is broken. Panicking even more, I hobble to the next cubicle with my pants halfway on my thighs and praying no one comes in, and what do you know, no toilet paper there either. The sink is broken too. Story time. I was a head resident in a women's dorm when I was in grad school. One night I took the elevator down to the basement to do some laundry. The elevator let out in a back hallway next to the only men's room in the building. I drag my laundry bag out to the laundry room and notice I'm dragging a brown smear after me. I quickly dump all my laundry into the machine and throw away the bag. In sheer horror and curiosity I go back to the hallway and turn on the lights. There's poop plops on the floor. I enter the men's restroom and there's poop everywhere, toilet, seats, walls. I went to a fairly fancy, high-class, college. The dorms were locked to anyone except residents and guests. There were no sketchy strangers or homeless people on campus. This means that poop explosion had to have been by some upper middle class, college-age boy. How someone had that tragic of a pooping experience in public and managed to escape without being caught covered in poop, is a mystery to me to this very day. Life does not pay college janitors enough money.